Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Up in the Air. I'm Hunter Williams.
And I'm Meredith Fish. Tonight we have plenty to talk about, and Ryan Breton will be on the show later with your climate outlook for the next few days.
We will also be joined by members of the Weather Risk Management Club, who will talk about this week's unusual temperature outlook and the California drought and the effect it has on the local economy.
But first, we have your latest news from the weather enterprise and climate community. Here's Updated in the Air.
After a stressful past couple of weeks for the residents of the village of Pahoa on Hawaii's Big Island, it appears that the lava flow which has been threatening the village could finally be coming to a halt. Authorities monitoring the lava flow, which is the result of the Kilauea volcano, state that as of recent, very little activity has occurred within the lava flow. Currently, however, the flow is just 480 feet from Pahoa Village Road, which marks the center of the Hawaiian village. Prior to the current halt, the lava was flowing at a rate of 10 to 15 yards per hour and was threatening at least 50 homes in the area, according to a U.S. Geological Survey. Despite the recent news, evacuation advisories remain in effect for all residents downslope of the flow after many residents of the village were evacuated late last month. Also, in the wake of the good news, a statement by Hawaii County Civil Defense said that despite recent slowing, observed inflation of the lava flow could result in increased activity in the coming days and the coming weeks.
The director of the Center for Maritime Systems at Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, New Jersey, founded the New York Harbor Observing and Predicting System. This observing and predicting system is preparing to install 26 high-tech sensors in the waters around New York and New Jersey to monitor coastal conditions. These sensors will be strategically placed in places like PATH train station in Hoboken, Newark Liberty, LaGuardia, and John F. Kennedy International Airports, sites which are mainly owned by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, who is funding this $6.6 million project. Because of the flooding caused by Hurricane Sandy in this area, this system will be a more precise way to monitor potential flooding alerts on a street level. This will be an open system, meaning that the public will be able to assess the data on the company's website and make their own decisions regarding evacuation.
It has long been believed that offshore islands serve to protect the mainland from tsunamis in the event of these powerful natural disasters. However, a new study determined that, in fact, offshore islands enhance the power of tsunami waves. This new research was inspired by a field survey of the 2010 tsunami that occurred on the Mentawai Islands off the coast of Sumatra. This field survey found that villages located in the shadow of small offshore islands suffered the strongest tsunami impacts. Following the survey, computer modeling done by the USC Tsunami Research Center on the Sumatran tsunami confirmed that the offshore islands did in fact contribute to the tsunami's severity in these locations. To eliminate the possibility that this tsunami was a one-of-a-kind event, a team of scientists developed a computer model that took into account island slopes, beach slopes, water depth, distance between the island and the beach, as well as the wavelength of the incoming tsunami. The computer model confirmed that the long-standing belief was wrong, that offshore islands focus the energy of tsunamis and can increase flooding on the mainland by up to 70%. Members of the research team now hope that with this new information, public education efforts can be employed to better prepare those in tsunami-prone areas to respond properly to these natural disasters.
The UK's Meteorological Office, which is one of the oldest and best forecasting agencies in the world, is about to get a major computer upgrade. The new supercomputer the Met Office is planning will have a capacity of 16 petaflops, which equates to 16 quadrillion calculations per second. Although the exact design isn't released, it will have a total of 480,000 CPU cores, weigh 140 tons, and will be air-cooled rather than water-cooled. This new system will cost $156 million and is currently being built in Germany. This supercomputer will allow for improved forecasts, including better flood warning, accurate hurricane prediction, and global climate change. The socioeconomic benefits are predicted to be worth $2 billion, well worth the initial investment.
A new study led by scientists at the University of Texas at Austin's Marine Science Institute has determined that climate variability has an opposing impact on marine life and tree growth. According to the study, the same climatic influences that result in the upwelling of nutrient-rich deep ocean waters also result in lower precipitation on land and in turn slower tree growth. The scientists involved with the study turned to a strange source in their efforts to quantify the ocean upwelling and its effects using tree rings from long-lived blue oak trees. Through analysis of these tree rings, the team was able to demonstrate that the growth of the trees is highly sensitive to the same climate factors that are associated with upwelling. The team also utilized data on yearly fish growth and the timing of seabird egg laying. More specifically, the study determined that the high-pressure systems that favor winter upwelling and support marine productivity also prevent storm fronts and prevent precipitation from falling on land. The study also analyzed potential correlations between upwelling variation and climate change, finding that results are consistent with what would be expected to occur as a result of climate change, but further research would need to be done before the exact relationships can be determined.
Research in the U.S. is planned to focus on the devastating impact of ozone population in India. Scientists at the Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, Scripps Institute of Oceanography, and the National Center for Atmospheric Research discovered that 94 million people could have been fed if it wasn't for more than $1 billion in crop losses due to ozone pollution. Ozone is wreaking havoc on India's agricultural industry, ruining 6.7 million U.S. tons of India's wheat, rice, soybean, and cotton crops in 2005. The model used in these analyses is the chemistry version of NCAR's WRF model. Although there are major uncertainties in the amount of anthropogenic emissions from industry, transportation, and other human activities, this gives some sort of insight into future predictions using variations in emission estimates. These simulations are helpful in developing areas as little information is otherwise possible. Up in the Air will be back in a moment with more. Welcome back to Up in the Air.
Joining us now are Graham Smith and Corey Barwatt with this week's Risk Report.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Can you tell us how former Super Typhoon Nuri is currently impacting our weather and the drought out west?
This past week, Super Typhoon Nuri in the Pacific made its way north toward the Bering Strait. Though this system is no longer a super typhoon, due to its northward motion, it is turning into a record-setting center of low pressure in the northern Pacific, near Alaska. This extreme low is causing a larger than normal high-pressure ridge up the west coast and making way for a polar air mass to dip down into southern Canada. The entire process will cause much lower than average temperatures in the middle and eastern U.S. and higher than average temperatures in western states such as California. These late season high temperatures in California will only exacerbate the historic drought currently plaguing the West Coast state. The current drought conditions in California have been developing and escalating since 2011. Exceptional drought is shown in this graphic by dark red and currently dominates nearly 60% of the state. More than 80% of the state is currently experiencing at least extreme drought.
How is this affecting California's economy?
The economic health of our most valuable agricultural state is very dependent upon weather, and it has been hurt drastically by the chronic drought of the past couple years. Earlier this year, Richard Howitt, an expert on agricultural and natural resource economics, estimated that California's economy could lose as much as $2.2 billion this year alone. This estimate included losses of approximately $810 million in crop revenue and $203 million in dairy and livestock, as well as an additional $454 million in groundwater pumping costs. These statewide losses are resulting in higher commodity prices such as food and water. Farmers who supply produce to the state, the country, and even the world are having to limit their crops due to lack of water to irrigate with. Many farmers have started judging their production on which crops have the highest value per unit of water.
What is an example of a crop that is really experiencing a hurt in production from the drought?
California rice is a $5 billion industry that exports around the world. California rice is incredibly popular, and almost every sushi restaurant in America uses Sacramento Valley medium grain rice. Farmers planted 25% less rice this year than last due to water restrictions. If this drought continues, we can expect these changes to become even more drastic.
How will this affect the price of rice?
Due to the lack of supply and relatively unchanged demand for California rice, the price skyrocketed in the first 6 months of 2014 from approximately 70 cents per kilogram to $1.05 per kilogram. Thailand, which is one of the leading rice exporters, has experienced some political turmoil, and as a result, the price of rice from Thailand has dropped in the past year. This has created a very unstable market for California rice.
Thanks for the insight into the California drought and the impacts it is having on the rice market.
Thanks for having us, Jeff and Miranda will be here next week.
Welcome back to Up in the Air.
We are now joined by Ryan Breton with this week's Climate Outlook. Hi, Ryan.
Thank you very much, Heather and Meredith. That's right, definitely looking more cold as we head into the second part of this week and into the beginning of next week. November so far in State College is averaging a bit below normal, but I expect that by the middle and end part of the month, we'll probably end up a couple of degrees below normal here in State College. So this week, of course, it started mild, temperatures in the 60s in some places in the early part of the week, but colder air is moving into Pennsylvania now, and that cold air is going to remain the theme into next week. Here is the weather pattern beginning on Monday of next week. You can see the coldest of the cold likely to our north, but during the middle part of next week, some of this will swing down, so it could turn quite chilly here in central Pennsylvania for a time during the later part of this weekend and into part of next week if everything plays out the way that we see them at this time. There really isn't a whole lot of warmth in the pattern. Any warm colors here on this map well down along the Gulf Coast by the middle and end part of next week. So how does that break down into our temperature outlook for the period from November 17th through the 23rd? Well below normal temperatures centered through the Great Lakes, western Pennsylvania, all the way up toward Minneapolis, St. Paul. Below normal temperatures, even dipping down toward the Gulf Coast and even into Florida, again, during this period. Through the west, that's where we'll find above normal temperatures, which is really the theme here. Typically, when it's quite cold in the east, it turns quite warm in the west with a big ridge of high pressure, and that's what we're expecting during this period as well, with above normal temperatures, especially down here through the Four Corners, and well above normal temperatures into California through this period as well. Now, in terms of the precipitation, this is kind of an interesting breakdown here. Above normal precipitation expected through the southeast, below normal, though, through much of the northeast, interior parts of New England and Pennsylvania, spreading down to the south and west through parts of Illinois as well. Below normal precipitation. That will continue down here through parts of Texas and into New Mexico. But the good news is actually that there will be above normal precipitation through central and northern California, where they really could use the rain. Of course, they're in a long-term drought, so they would need much more to kind of cut a deficit in that, but any precipitation will help, and we are projecting above normal precipitation through this period throughout much of the west as well. So that is a look at the climate outlook for this week, certainly turning decidedly more wintry here in central Pennsylvania. We'll see if that comes with any snow chances. Stay with us here and Up in the Air for another climate outlook next week.
And that's all we have for you on this week's episode.
Thank you to everybody who joined us this week on the show.
Join us next week for another episode. I'm Meredith Fish.
And I'm Hunter Williams. We'll see you next week, Up in the Air.